I press on toward the goal for the prize of the heavenly call of God in Christ Jesus. In our tradition, in the Wesleyan heritage, we might be asking ourselves the question, are you going on to perfection? Because that's essentially the question that is being asked. Perfection not in the flesh, perfection not in ourselves, but are we pressing on to perfection in Christ Jesus? And hopefully, prayerfully, the answer would be a positive yes. I am pressing on, as the apostle talks about here in Philippians. It is our goal. It's a very high goal indeed, but it is our goal, hopefully. In a short time, we're going to be singing a wonderful song that we have sung within the church for a long time, a number of decades. The end of the service, take my life and let it be. I challenge you to, when we sing it together, later on, there's a lot between now and then, but to really think about and concentrate on the words that are written. The song was written in 1874 by a woman who was the youngest child of an Anglican priest in England. Her name was Havergal, and her influence within the church is still felt to this day, at least by this song for sure, and then some. It came out of one of her witnesses. In 1874, she writes this: there were 10 persons in the house that I went to. Some were unconverted and long prayed for. Some converted, but not rejoicing Christians. And God gave me the prayer, Lord, give me all in this house. And he did just that. Before I left the house, everyone received a blessing. And the last night of my visit, I was too happy to sleep, and passed the most of the night in the renewal of my consecration. And those little couplets formed themselves and shined in my heart, one after another, until they finished with ever only all for thee. The song came to her heart and soul, and she wrote the song. We still sing today. We will sing, as I said, at the end of the service. It begins with, take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee. Take my moments and my days, let them flow in endless praise. Take my hands and let them move with the impulse of thy love. As I was looking over this song and thinking about it this past week, I was thinking about how I came to be where I stand yet today, after all these numbers of years. I didn't always want to do, in fact, I reluctantly entered into this profession, because when God chose Paul first, I guess you might say, is when I was 12 years of age. You've heard me say part of that. It began with this simple little Bible with my name stenciled on it. For those of you that may not remember, my family went to church at First Methodist Church. This is before the Union of '68. First Methodist Church in Ames, Iowa. I recall going down the center aisle, which is still there, and in fact, I'm going to be going there on Tuesday for a meeting, and I know the memory will come back of me running down that center aisle to listen to the pastor give a little message to the little kids. I remember I had a blue jacket, vest, a little jacket with a little symbol right there. I remember that. Odd memories. I had a bow tie. It wasn't a Tabasco tie, but it was a bow tie that I would wear. It was my favorite little outfit for going to church. But I forget the exact year, it was 1960 or 1961, my grandmother died. And the pastor at that time said that he didn't have time to do the funeral for Grandma. He had a church council meeting to go to for the annual conference, some kind of meeting. And my dad was not happy, but he understood the commitments of a pastor. But then that same pastor showed up at the funeral service. That did not sit well. trustees, and my mother was heavily involved in the Methodist Women. Again, this was before the United, so that today would be United Methodist Women, but back then the Methodist Women. At that point in time, the family left the church. My memory of that church was running down for children's message, and also there was a picture up on the wall of the second floor for Sunday school, a picture of Jesus. Those are the two memories of that. Fast forward to the age of 12. When I was 12 years of age, the time that church would have been doing confirmation, this Bible came in the mail wrapped in plain brown paper. And I didn't understand what it was. Honestly, I did not know what it was. I knew it was a Bible. I sort of knew what a Bible was. But what is my name doing on it? And why did the church send me one? And then I got part of the story. But only a part at that point. I was only 12. But looking back over the years, the first book I read when I opened up this little book is still marked this very day. Some of you would see the yellow highlighting. That was done when I was 12 and 13 years of age. And the book, Ecclesiastes, sometimes called The Preacher. Perhaps I should have recognized then what would not occur until I was 27. But I'm a stubborn soul. And I wanted to break out on my own and do things. And so I explored a lot of different things. Read a lot of different things. When I was in high school, I read this particular book, and this is the one that's still left. I do have a hard copy now, but this is the paper copy that I got in 1972 when I was a sophomore, junior in high school. Memories, Dreams, and Reflections by C.J. Young. He worked with Sigmund Freud, famous psychologist. I poured through this, not reading schoolwork, but reading this kind of stuff, and reading other kinds of things. All of this leading me to the calling that I received at the age of 12 and beyond. But again, I did not respond. In 1981 is when things really came to a head for me. In 1981, my sister Joanne died of cancer. She was only 31 years of age. She had gotten cancer and went through in remission 3 different times, from the time I was in the Marine Corps in 1977 up until the year she died in 1981. In 1981, my sister Joanne graduated as an RN in May and died in September. She practiced her work as an RN for less than a month. Now, she'd been an LPN, she'd been to Candy Stripe, remember those? She'd been all of it. So she'd worked in the hospitals all of her life from high school on. But her practice as an RN only lasted a very limited time because of the cancer. And her body succumbed to the sickness, and she died. Now, what does this have to do with my call? Well, in 1981, 2 years before I responded to the call and went to seminary, 1981, less than a month before Joanne died, she was concerned about 2 things. Our father accepting the fact that the cancer had gone so far, there was nothing anyone could do, that she was going to die. That was just it. That was the reality of the situation. But our father, being a dad, didn't want to accept that his second child was going to be lost. As he said to me often, a parent is not supposed to outlive their children. So he had a really, really hard time. And Joanne knew this. And so Joanne challenged me as her little brother, 6 years younger, to make sure to take care of Dad the rest of my life until he passed, or until I passed. That was her challenge to me. But then the kicker came on me. Remember, she was a nurse, an RN. One of her classmates, one of her friends, was a year or 2 older than me. And she was single. I was single. And what does a big sister do? You 2 need to go out on a date. Here is my sister, not concerned about herself at all. My sister is concerned about her father, accepting her own death, which is soon to be upon her. She's not thinking about that. She's not even thinking about that when she talks to me. She's thinking about me. And that pushed me even further down the road to examine, who am I? I'm interested in philosophy, I'm interested in psychology, I'm interested in religion, but who am I really? It took me a while, it took me another 2 years really to really sink in. And the straw that broke the camel's back was I was engaged to be married to someone else that I'm not married to now, and that relationship broke up, and it was the last straw. And I remember going to the senior pastor who did the funeral service for my sister and talking to him about the call for ministry. He wanted me to wait for another year, but I told him, I said, I needed to go now. If I'm ever going to do this, ever being sure of myself, I need to go now. So I was confirmed as a member of the church in November, went to seminary in December, not knowing much of anything about United Methodist Church or about the church in general. But when I was introduced to John Wesley in seminary, it was like an old friend had come into the room. The theology, the way we do things within the United Methodist Church, the way we talk about our faith, the way we describe grace, the way we live together, it was what I was called for. And it was awesome. Now, what does this have to do with you? It has everything to do with you. Your call may not be to what I do and have done for a long time, what Pastor Lisa has done for a number of years. But your call is still a call of ministry and a mission to the world, to bear witness for Christ in what you do and how you do it. Do not think that just because you might be an engineer, or a nurse, or a farmer, a lawyer, whatever you might be doing for your life work, it's not just that. It is your life work is to bear witness to Christ in the world in which we live. It takes all of us together, all of us, all of our gifts and talents, whether it's playing the piano, whether it's ringing the bells that we heard earlier this morning, singing in the choir, whatever it be, being a liturgist, whatever it takes, working on the trustees, whatever it takes together. We don't do the work of God's kingdom alone. We do it together. In a little over an hour, Jay Johnson's going to be talking in the other room, the fellowship hall. In a little over an hour, we will be celebrating a potluck. We will be eating a meal together. We will be talking about the ministry of the soul in United Methodist Church. We'll be talking about our life and the life yet to come. I invite you to that. But more than that and beyond that, I invite you to take a good look at yourself. Take my life, the song we'll be singing. Remember? Take my life and let it be. When we sing it, let it sink into your heart and soul. Let it speak to you. And listen to God speak to you.